Ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bá jó, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bá jó, olúwa mi ò dìde ojó
The Ashen Forge. The Ashen Forge.
Welcome to the Ashen Forge. I am Phantom X, joined as always by Diggs and the legendary Neurotoxin. How y'all doing?
Doing all right.
I'm kind of sleepy, but not as sleepy as I have been playing Nightingale. Just sleepy because I danced for 12 hours yesterday. Yeah, good.
I was gonna say, yeah, you sent out like a message early in Discord, like I'm out, see ya, like all night, gone. Like, all right, you go dance.
I had three things. So I ran into this guy Wednesday night when I was dancing after class, who I've been seeing around in the clubs, but we fist bump, but I've never really talked to him. But he's leaving tomorrow to move to Brazil, and he invited me to a going away party at his place on Saturday. And Wednesday night, I was like, yeah, sure. I don't have anything going on Saturday. I'll go to that. And then Thursday, I found out that my favorite bachata teacher is in town. I dance with her like twice a year. She's in town, and she had a boot camp from 4 p.m. to, well, classes are 4 p.m. to 9, and then dancing from 9 to 2 in the morning. And I was like, oh, I got to go to that. So planned to go to that. But the party started at 12. So I was like, I'll go to the party first and go to the boot camp. And then also Thursday night, my favorite salsa teacher said, oh, by the way, Saturday I'm teaching an advanced class. I would love for you to come and help. And I was like, okay, that's 12:30. I'm gonna blow off the guy who I just met, I don't know him well enough that he's gonna care if I don't go to the party. But then yesterday morning he texted me, are you coming to my party? It's like, I gotta go to the party too. So I did all three. And actually, going to the party, I was at the party for 45 minutes, and that was the most important part because I've been dancing, but I've never been to an Afro-Latino party with African Latinos dancing salsa and bachata at a party. Totally different than dancing at a club. And I learned a lot. It was awesome.
Nice. Very cool.
12 hours of dancing, but it was great.
So we are thinking to talk a little bit about PvE, so alternative rules servers. This is something we.
Wait, I had something from last time I wanted to bridge first, which was the I was overlooking. So this is the fighter. We talked about the fighter active skills last week. And for some reason it made me go back and check maybe something in the forums made me go back and check the Ranger demo. And I was realizing that the marks, there's like 3 marks and 3 hunts for the Ranger. That's like these categories of active skills that you can spec into. And that's similar to the movement. Is it the movement? No, what is it for fighter? Stances. It's similar to the forms that the fighter has. So now I'm wondering if each primary archetype will have those kind of categories. Like the fighter has the form of the this, the form of the that, and then the ranger has like hunt of the bear, hunt of the ranger, hunt of the tiger. So I'm wondering if that's going to be a common theme through all the do you remember that with the ranger? Thinking back on that?
Yeah, I believe there is not only the one where they could mark targets and make them vulnerable, but then there are other ways to kind of enhance themselves in different formats
Yeah.
to make things more effective. And so it's nice to be able to have that sort of thing as default, and then you can build around it as you'd like. Um, it depends on how the player's trying to build out, what their goals are, what they're trying to get out of their archetype kit versus what they're trying to get out of some of their other affiliations that they have, and the associated skills. So that's going to be interesting to see when we get everything, when it's not just the primary archetype but also secondary archetypes, and the other sorts of things that they've talked about feeding in the with the religion, faith related ones, and some of the other categories, your guild. Um, so it depends on what the player's trying to do, how they're trying to specialize. They could focus, more on some of their abilities here and there, and then get some of the other stuff from some of their other kits to enhance with it, rather than just trying to focus on specifically, leaning into one kit. But I'm not sure, that's have they actually declared that there's a limit to the amount of points and you either spend it here, here, or here? Or is it something where the more you gain experience, affinity, whatever, the more you can invest in that specific tree? Like, if I'm learning how to use a weapon and building up my primary archetype, am I going from a common pool of skill points to spend into both of them? Or does each one have its own set of points that I'm able to spend from? Because I kind of got the impression that that was going to be the case, that it's a common pool that everything kind of draws from. So, that definitely does speak to the need for specializing one way or the other in certain ways.
You're muted.
Yeah. Also, speaking of specializing, and I think it is going to be one common pool of skill points, and I think you even have to split that up with passive skills as well. Um, someone there's a thread in the forums with someone complaining that the blood-based path was too graphic and off-putting, and they shouldn't have that in there. Um, and they should get rid of it uh, because that makes fighters vampires for some reason. And I was saying, but one, you
That's
don't have to
fine.
go into that. You don't have to go into that specialization if you don't want to. Of course, the meta gamers were like, no, you have to do everything. You can't like ignore one set of. If they're there, you have to use all of them. Um, but also, it makes sense. So I was expecting the fighter to be more of a swashbuckler. And I was not expecting. I was expecting we'd see Kalar and elves as kind of the um, primary races that would be doing fighter. Um, but so I was kind of surprised to see Renkai. But if you're using Renkai to demo what a fighter is, it kind of makes sense to me that Renkai might. I mean, if they're the ones who's developing that path of fighting skills, they might very well want blood to be an integral part of that. So I think Phantom was in that thread for a little bit, and he was like, lore might have something to do with their decision to have that blood path in there, which I agree. Like, if Renkai are putting a lot of effort into developing that path, and it seems like something orcs would be interested in adding. But also, like you said, Phantom, we've got those other forms of augments. So we've got religious augments, we've got racial augments, we've got secondary archetype augments. So if you want to change the appearance of the blood, you can probably change it to nature or shadow or um, radiant cleric stuff if you want to. You aren't permanently stuck with um, the graphics of that being blood, or even the um, type of effects being blood. You can change those if you want to. So I thought that was interesting.
Sorry, getting into a whole other a whole other conversation here about meta stuff.
Yeah, me too. I'm not a fan of the meta.
This
You
is
don't
the
have to.
hijacking.
You,
Why?
you 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 do not have to conform to the meta if you don't want to.
Well, I would rather pay attention to other things than what is the best build. I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, I want to pay attention to what I think is the best build for my character, and even my character, my alts in the same um, primary archetype would likely have different specs. They would not have this exact same specs because they're different characters. So they're going to have different interests. But yeah, you don't have to conform if you don't want to. But also, I don't want other people deciding for me what the meta is. I want to decide what the and even if it's meta, I want to decide how I'm going to play my character, not other people decide how I have to play my character.
Now we're getting. You're
The
muted.
hope is that this will give me off specialization from gear and other sorts of things that you can actually play the sort of way that you want to, and you just lean into it in various different ways. It might, take a little bit of effort to get the things that are, I won't call them best in slot, but pretty good for you and what you're trying to do. And you can, really try to maximize it. If ultimately it's not the most powerful or it has, some weaknesses or something, so what? You're playing the game you want to play.
Yeah, I mean, I first ran into that with Neverwinter Online, where I was playing an ice mage and got into a dungeon. I was running a dungeon with some content creator, and that group was like, "Okay, so we're at this cliff now. You have to switch to be a what was it, like a magnetic? You have to use your magnetic powers, so switch your specs." And I'm like, "No, I'm an ice wizard. I don't do magnetism. I specifically do everything ice." "Well, no, everybody understands. You have to switch to magnetism at this point. You can't just be an ice wizard." And I'm like, I mean, it's an RPG. That's the background of my character. It's an ice wizard. It is not a magnetism wizard. And sorry, we're gonna have. I bet there's a way for us to defeat this dungeon without relying on magnetism at this one point. And if there is not, then that means the game sucks. That's not a player thing.
All right. Well, we can come back to meta gaming,
Fighter.
fighter meta, all that. What we had wanted to talk about, again, we've kind of chatted about this the past two streams a little bit. I know you're going to disagree with me, but this kind of picked up when Steven said, for the first time, there will be no PvE or PvP servers. There's just the server. And so that has a little bit of a debate, or what a chat about whether alternative rules servers could even exist in Ashes of Creation. Could Vera actually work as intended with a PvE server? I don't know that we would talk about PvP servers like that's. I don't know what you would do extra for a PvP server. I guess.
Plenty. You're always flagged when you go out. There's no not being flagged, except when you're in town. You'd be the only place.
That's true.
Yeah, you could be default combatant as well. But so I want to start off by saying I was shocked when Steven said that he hasn't said that before, because those are the first conversations that I had in the forums, is that there's only one server type. And when you go to the wiki, it very clearly says there's only one server type. And the sources for that, several of them say 2017. Now, when I go to the sources and actually look at the sources, Steven does his disgusting tap dance around answering the question clearly. So MMORPG clearly asked them, are there separate servers? And he did a dance, 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 and said a whole bunch of stuff. But no, he did not actually say, no, there's only one server type. And in all the sources that I can find, people ask him directly, but he never actually comes out and says, no, there's only one server type. But the very first conversations I had on the forums was about, would it be possible? Because that's what PvE, people who play on PvE only servers, that's the first thing they want to know when they find out about Ashes is there a PvE only server? And they're immediately told no. And actually that comes into play like every 6 months. As soon as somebody finds out about Ashes of Creation, who normally play WoW or EQ on PvE only servers, that's their first question is there going to be a PvE only server? And we tell them, nope, there's only one server type. Our peers want to know the same thing. Is there going to be separate RP servers? And we tell them, no, there's only one server type. And the wiki also says no separate RP servers. Even though I think if you look at the source material on that, Steven is asked that question, but he doesn't directly answer it. He kind of tap dances around it like he typically does. It would be horrible and insane if we were 7 years in and we didn't know that there was only one server type. To announce that 7 years in is just ridiculous. Thankfully, we've always thought that it was only one server type, even if Steven didn't directly say it. So
Yeah, it may have been from other things or implied in other ways, and you know, I can't remember if the Kickstarter even mentioned something about it, but I don't believe they ever said anything about, different server types or whatever. So yeah, it's what it is. So it seems like, yes, there are things that they could do if they wanted to change the rules up a bit for PvP or PvE specific servers. And it might not even be something that happens at launch. It could be something where it's more of an economics decision that, they have so many players that have joined and started playing and continued, but it could be that a lot of them in exit surveys or otherwise say, I really wish this was a PvE game, or golly, I wish I could, kick anybody over and not be punished for it, and maybe want it to be more of a PvP only. So it could be over time that, through various sources of information, they decide, well, maybe we should actually do this. It could even be occurring during the alpha beta phases, because if anything, beta 2 would probably be the best time, beta 1 or beta 2, to test any alternative server types to see if they're even viable. Maybe they just try it as a Phoenix Initiative thing, or Alpha 1 only players or something get in or whatever to do some of this limited testing. But
yes, so
yeah.
back in 2017, like I say, when I first started on the servers and we were discussing this, I was saying, oh, I would actually love it if there was the possibility of having one server designated for that, for testing. Um, one server with PvP by default turned off, and see how players would respond to that. But considering it's trying to release before 2020, it's not worth the time to do that. They don't have time to explore that, especially if the final decision is going to be no, we're not going to go that way. But I think what you would do, it's basically would be uh, it would be PVE only ish. Um,
Right.
the PvP would be determined through RP, really, and it would be the players would be deciding, okay, uh, because of these reasons with our story, it's time to have a siege, and then as a community decide to turn the PvP on, and then you would play out whatever the siege is. But it's really going to be played more like an RP game than a PvP game, because you're RPing your story decisions. And so it would be the community as that the community on that server deciding to turn PvP on for however long the siege is going to last, and then you turn it back off afterwards. So um, that would involve GMs probably. Um,
Wait, so the community decides when a siege occurs just out of the blue?
well,
How would you expect
our,
what do you think would make a community do that?
because it would primarily be RP. That's what RPers do. They craft a story together.
So there's no intent on playing the game, just RPing.
Huh? Role playing has playing as an integral part of the term. So if you're RPing, you have to be playing.
Okay. So you're just going to come up one day to decide, I'm mad at you, I want to siege your node. I'm going to take over your node.
Why would it have anything to do with being mad when
Well,
you're
then why
role
else would it
playing?
occur?
Because that's the way you've decided you want the story to go, just like any other storytelling.
And you think a community would do that?
RPers would do that. PvEers would do that. Yes.
Yeah, I don't think that would happen.
Well, of course,
It,
certain playstyles think that only their playstyle is the way people play, but no,
I
actually
don't think it
there's
has anything
diverse
to do with
playstyles.
how it's
I know
played.
you don't. I know you don't. And yet you're wrong, and what I'm saying is factual.
Nero, you're about to say something.
oh, I was gonna say, RP or not, it's whatever's gonna happen can't be like too giant of a change to the systems as they exist. Changing how people flag in different places and different things like that, that's one thing. I don't think that's something that's too terribly difficult for them to be able to you know define regions that already exist and flip switches in different ways to manipulate how they behave in terms of flagging related behaviors. But I think anything beyond that, that would adjust how the systems work. Um, you know, it it would definitely need to be the lightest of things, if anything. It's I think I honestly, this is kind of going to turn the thing around a little bit in a different way. I don't actually know how much people are going to not, RP to some extent to establish some identity for their character that they're playing long term, that they're not just, a walking stat stick and a set of cosmetics or whatever, but that they actually have some investment in the character they've created and the various events they've seen that other people haven't necessarily seen, that makes them more endearing to both the game and the identity of their character. Even if people aren't going to hardcore RP and like type in some sort of accent that they think fits the way their characters would talk. I think there is going to be at least a little bit of the, I've been there, I've done that, that's who this character is, that's who I'm playing, that is just going to develop over time. Not every player is going to play it this way. I think the people who are least likely to do that are actually going to be the hardcore, super regimented, super disciplined, world first, we try to beat every boss and get all the loot so we have everything sort of guilds. Like they're the only ones that I might expect to not actually enjoy the game, to not actually um, really engage in the narratives as much as the main narrative, which is do guild, be guild, make guild stuff, and kill everything else.
Sorry, I'm reading chat here. Diggs.
Yeah, I noticed you guys are diving in over there.
Yep.
Yeah, but I think the ability to make servers where the flagging is modified in order to accommodate different sorts of communities is not the worst thing in the world, and it's something that I don't think would actually be done as a we are now welcoming you players sort of thing, so much as potentially more of an economic decision that enough research had been done and enough, again, like I was saying earlier, enough sources of input to confirm that, hey, it's worth trying these different things because there's different sorts of audiences that they'll potentially be able to attract. So it's probably going to launch the way it is. If they try different server types, it might be a post-launch sort of thing. They could even do them as like a beta goes live sort of server that you can start on it now, and we're testing it. And at some point we'll have had the final wipe before we've released it for some last-minute testing. Then whatever you got will be like your little head start before this server format officially releases. I could see that as an appealing way to try to get people interested in trying. And if they decide they don't actually like those modes and it doesn't actually have the attraction that the main servers do, they can say, "Well, that was an experiment; it didn't work out," and just pull the plug on it. Just stay with the one server type, which by and large I think is going to be fine for the majority of the players that are going to be playing, plus or minus some of the hazards and getting their asses kicked when they don't want it. Really the open seas, I think, and the fighting other guilds for world boss kills are the only two things that the average player might not really like with the normal servers.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think that they have time now. Who knows when the game is going to release? So technically, they have time to uh, play around with different server types. But Steven's not interested in that, and he's not interested in having a broad, diverse playstyles. He is focused on his playstyle, and I think um, if Jeffrey were still on board as lead game designer, and we had, I don't know what this unlimited time is, 10 years to, how long is our alpha period going to be? It's already been, well, I guess technically it's already been 7 years because we've had various versions of Alpha 1. Um, I, 7 years might have been enough time to play around with different server types. When you have 3 years, then you don't have that time. But I think Steven's not interested in that, so it wouldn't happen anyway.
Yeah. So there's two. So there's two kind of similar conversations. This was asked in chat. So there's a conversation of whether PVE servers could work, and then I think whether there should be. I just don't think within the pillars as described, the sort of core design pillars that have always existed, that PVE servers as we know them today would work. I think that becomes a game that's just
What
like
is
any other
what is
game.
what it? No, because you still have PvP and you still have meaningful conflict. It's just the community is deciding on that, just like you decide on having a wedding event,
What
right?
makes Ashes of Creation different from every other MMO? What is the one thing that is supposed to make it different?
Nodes.
Yeah,
And
nodes
so how have
causing
those
world.
always been described as functioning? We talked about this way back in 2016, 17, because
Oh, but
when I
it's
first
like you
brought, let me
wait,
finish. When I
wait.
first, no, let me just
No, I'm not
finish.
going to let you finish because you didn't listen to what I said. You act like I said that there's no PvP in the game. That's not what I said.
No, it's how it's
There
being
is
implemented is
PvP.
important because there's PvP in lots
Why?
of games. And
Yeah, and
way
there's
back
still
in
meaningful conflict.
2016, 2017, is when I mentioned this game to you guys, and I said, well, it's a PvP heavy game, but that's needed for nodes.
Yeah. What
And
kind of? How does the PvP work?
what do you mean?
What's the PvP part of meaningful conflict that causes the change? What are the examples?
Disagreements between people.
No.
Essentially, it all comes down to
No,
economics.
that is. It does not. That is
Yes,
not.
it
Did
does.
you watch the video? Watch the video again. That's not what it says. It says
So
sieges.
I don't know if people know this.
It says It says meaningful conflict, sieges, and caravans, and castles. You don't have to have. Those are meaningful conflicts. You don't have to have um, animosity or any of that to have those things. Those can be story elements that communities decide on.
So interestingly, for those who are unaware, we pointed this out. There's actually different, depending on your source, slightly different versions of the core pillars. So pre-existing to Kickstarter, there was an article that was put up, I think, like a month or two before Kickstarter went live, that had 5 pillars, and those are what is actually listed in the wiki. Engaging, immersive story, reactive world, player interaction, player agency, and risk versus reward. So those were the 5 pillars that get cited frequently everywhere. And Kickstarter had 4 related but different pillars, which were economy, nodes, meaningful conflict, and narrative. They all kind of loosely fit together. But I think the biggest thing that is different is the risk versus reward characterization in the 5 pillars versus the 4.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't
Mm-hmm.
think you can have a reactive world. I've said this about sandboxes forever. I don't think sandboxes work. I think relying on players to create a story and change the world and in a way that's presented this way as a PvE RP driven sort of experience, I don't think that works. I don't think Landmark was going to work that way. I think players need to be told what to do. They need to be driven in certain ways, and to leave them to create a server where every single node, the decision made on where it grows, how it grows, is by community discussion and decision, versus a natural tendency of disagreement. And that could still happen in RP, but
You don't
you're
need. Yeah, you don't need disagreement. Again, you just decide to do it, and the nodes would still grow. You don't have to have interaction for the nodes to spontaneously grow. You need the interaction to decide which nodes are going to be sieged, which is different.
Yeah, it's getting pointed out in chat that the meaningful conflict is open to interpretation. It is.
It is.
They do describe it though in the Kickstarter, and this is what Diggs is getting at. They do actually. Stephen describes what meaningful conflict means to him, and it was what you just mentioned: the sieges and all of that.
Caravans, battle arenas,
Yeah, but
battlegrounds.
my thing is I have never seen outside of Minecraft a game where players are free to create entire games essentially of their own, and it works out well.
But I didn't say that either.
Well, you're
That
saying the players should be able to essentially take a vote based off of a story and turn something
or
on,
the
turn it
sieges.
off.
Yeah.
I don't think that works.
Well, we don't know unless we test it, right?
Eh,
You can think a
I
lot of
don't think
things.
that works. Well, I mean, there's
I mean,
plenty of games
you can
out
think a
here.
lot of things, and then you test them.
And what makes Ashes of Creation different is the node system, and what has always been a driving force of nodes is the conflict and differences of opinion between people. So
That's not in the Kickstarter. That's not part of the Kickstarter. That's not what they talked about really in
it's
any of the
inherent.
discussion.
It's inherent in
It's
caravans.
not
It's
inherent.
inherent. Sure, it
It's
is.
not inherent. It's not
One guild
inherent.
is tired of their other guild being
Or
they.
not. It could be if you have that play style, or you could be our peers and decide to
Yeah.
storytell together. And it still wouldn't be a sandbox. It's still a theme box because
No.
the dev narrative is still part of the. We're not changing anything about the dev narrated,
Well,
the dev curated narration. It's still a theme box in any case. But
Neuro's
our
just over
peers
here being
come
real
together.
quiet.
Yeah, our peers come together all the time to create events. That's what our peers
I'm
do.
just enjoying you guys' conversation here because you guys are just so hilarious to listen to on the subject.
Well, it's interesting, right? I'm not what you would call a PvPer, right? I don't seek out those types of games typically.
I'm not
I'll
sure you're an
PvP.
RPer either. I'm not sure you're an RPer either.
Oh, I'm not on your level of RP. No.
I'm not even sure what kind of player you are. Usually seem like a self-saboteur.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like you want to ruin things.
Hmm.
Oh, I wanted to. Yeah, Illyria for
Mhm.
sure. Yeah, that was fun. That was RP. That was certainly a proactive decision of, I have always played good characters, alliance, blah 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 blah. I'm gonna have some fun with this. I'm going to um, really try to just destroy, just to underhandedly do whatever I could and see what happens. That's sort of a social experiment. Um, but
Hmm.
I think when given the option, the vast majority of people will go towards least conflict possible. That if given the two options of you can get the same prize, but one's going to take more difficulty in terms of conflicting with other people and having to disagree and fight and go to war and blah blah blah. Or you can have the same prize in a
Yeah.
less of an interaction in that type, where you're solely relying on yourself. You're not having to worry about what someone else is doing. I think the vast majority of people always choose the path of least resistance, which is why I also do think that you see most MMORPGs that are successful are ones that do not rely heavily on PvP, because the vast majority of players I don't think want to go that route all the time. They like to have some of it possible, when they want it. As Dig says, consensual PvP. When I feel like battlegrounding, I'm going to battleground. But
Hmm.
again, that doesn't change.
And
Where I
when
don't
when
think,
when the nodes get stagnant, that's when you turn on the PvP.
yeah, but that feels bad, man. That feels real
To
bad.
you, to you.
Well, yeah, because
So
that's
don't
not the
play on
spirit
that
of
one server.
nodes.
Then it is.
No,
Just
it's
don't play
not.
on that
Things
server.
got
It
boring.
is.
So,
I mean, that's for you. Stagnant is not the same thing as boring.
well, but the hope with nodes was always that it would be not stagnant, right? Not boring. That's how they work.
I don't know why you're conflating stagnant with boring.
I didn't. I said both words
You
separate.
did.
I didn't say
No, you
equals.
said not stagnant, not boring, but you started by conflating them,
Sexual
and I'm
tension.
saying stagnant is
Hold
not the
on.
same thing as boring.
Hold on. I gotta clarify something. Sexual tension. Is that coming through on Twitch chat, or is that just it's a YouTube
uh,
comment?
Hmm.
I need you to explain.
But yeah, you just if the nodes are stagnant, or for whatever reason it just comes up in the story that you're ready to do a siege, then you do a siege. Just like when you're ready to have a wedding event or any other kind of event, on RP servers, you create the event. And there's nothing boring about that. It's just a different playstyle.
instead, the game will create its own wedding events that you can participate in if you find them, or you can just keep going. You don't have to participate. Maybe sitting there, maybe standing, maybe applauding, maybe drink some wine, eat some cake, celebrate, hold up a chair while someone's on it and do some dancing, all that sort of stuff. Break some glass, uh, chuck some flowers, maybe something more interesting for other races than Kalar, because imagine that just be what a Kalar wedding is. um, I think it would be an interesting sort of thing to consider the RP sort of stuff. But again, I'm going to go back to what I was saying. If it isn't just a change to the mechanics of the global flagging system, I scarcely think it's something they're actually going to approach with more, active, community-driven mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
There are other
Yeah.
games for that, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Ashes is not made for everyone.
I don't know. I made peace with the idea that PvP was a necessary component to make nodes work a long time ago.
But again, what you
I
really seem to
just
be saying is
disagree.
disagreement. I'm saying you seem to be saying that you think disagreement was an integral part, which is different from
Yeah,
PvP,
I
because you
mean,
can
but
have
you
PvP without disagreement.
Sorry, I'm now reading too much chat and not talking. I like having all the chatters. It's just hard to keep track of everything.
There's always unwanted conflict in MMOs because mobs will attack you in the open wild too. You might not want them to. You might just want to walk around and look at stuff. But no, you go by a critter, you go by a bandit, they'll attack you, and you won't be able to reason with them either.
Don't
So
need
it's
to.
either you got to fight or run.
Yeah, but those have tethers, so it's easy to run, and they're easier to defeat than humans as well. So there's all kinds of ways you can do your stuff in just in
Why?
general PvE.
Why
You
would
can
they?
do whatever,
Why would they have tethers? If it's an
but
RP
they
server,
do
why
have
would you limit them in that way? Why aren't they
but they
just
do have
strolling
server
around?
but they do have server. They do have tethers.
Okay, but if the rules of the server are different, then clearly they could also make some changes to the tethering of
If
things.
the community wanted that, but that's not the way it is, right?
Sorry, like Roy
This
is
is one
pointing
of the
out that
reasons why I think go ahead.
no, he's just pointing out that we conflict is by people not getting along, and that we are not getting along right now. So we are in conflict. Real time PvP.
I don't know who's not getting along. It's just a conversation.
Yep.
Well, I did not play Lineage, so I can't speak to that. DAOC I believe, has toggles, so you never you knew you were participating, I believe, in PvP. So
Yeah, I don't. Somebody they mentioned that they were talking about that. I think Jamie Chaos and Roar, Richie were talking about DAOC, and I don't remember the PvP in that game, so I think it was toggle.
So what proof? You said I don't have proof that PvP is. So what makes you think that an entirely RP'd server? What proof do you have that that would work? That nodes would function? What communities have you been a part of where you think you know that 80 plus nodes will all periodically change hands because players are role playing? What makes you so confident in that?
Where did I say confident? What did I
No, I'm
actually
asking
say?
you. You seem confident.
I know. But
Are you
what did
not confident?
No. What did I
You're
say?
not confident.
What did I say should happen?
Repeat what you said.
I said test it.
Mm-hmm. But you seem pretty confident that it would work. Otherwise, why have the argument?
I'm pretty confident that it's possible and that our peers like to do that kind of thing, but you have to test it. I didn't say I know. I said it would be nice to have one server to test that
Has
and
there
see what
been a
happens.
game? What's the closest we get to nodes in any other
Well,
MMORPG? What's the
that's kind
closest?
of the point. I don't know of anything close to it where you build your own city and it could be destroyed by anything. I don't know of any game like that.
I don't
Yeah.
know,
I don't know of
maybe an
any
RP server on
MMORPG.
Eco or something, but that's more of a
Yeah,
sandbox
I
than
would
than
I
a
would like a PvP server on Eco. That'd be fun.
yeah GTA. Oh, my buddy played a bunch of RP servers on Eco. They had like voting and roles in the community and all that sort of stuff. It was pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, but GTA
Yeah,
is not a
GTA
RPG.
RP. No, the GTA RP server is amazing. That's the one where they've got all of the emotes and everything fully modified, so you can completely articulate your character in various different ways. Um, various fun and interesting sorts of things that are put into it.
Yeah, but
It's
it's not
fun.
an RPG, so I don't know. So I don't know of any
No,
MMORPG that has a node system.
it is somewhat of an MMO, and it is an RP format game, and it is a game that people RP in. So I think it is an RPG, even though the game itself, the base game GTA, is not this heavily modified server. Kinda is.
It's what is GTA? What kind of game is it?
It's Grand Theft Auto third person, over the shoulder view. You're able to do stuff on foot, you're able to do stuff, driving around in vehicles. The
Action
RP
adventure game.
servers,
It's an
but
action adventure game
the
with
RP server,
with RP elements is the way that would be described professionally.
I guess so, maybe. I don't know. I mean, there
Mhm.
isn't as much action if you don't want to engage in it. You can just be a mechanic and work at a mechanic shop, and that's all your character's, identity is. You create your before you even join the server, you've got to create an identity for your character and get it approved, if I'm not mistaken. So, like, that's how well the RP-edness of it is actually enforced.
Mhm.
It was specifically set up for like live streamers, so they wanted to make sure everybody participating was following the rules. And so everybody that was playing was somebody that was already vetted. Usually they were streaming, and so everybody complied with the roles of their characters. You don't just like go and do a shooting spree sort of thing. You might go into a bank with your buddies and some masks on, and like hold the place up, and then you do the usual deal with the police is we leave the hostages, you give us a 5-minute head start, and then the chase begins. Haha, fun stuff, or however long, and so that's just how the RP antics work. And maybe you catch them, maybe you don't. That's where the game part of it comes in. Maybe you were actually able to catch the suspects there, and maybe they are able to outsmart you and get to a place that was considered a safe enough zone that they could hide out, and you didn't find them. And you lost them. So, it is, yes, in the format of a GTA game with a whole bunch of emotes and a whole bunch of things with the itemization that are different. You can sell coffee with meth in it, and it makes everybody else speedy. That was one of the things my buddy had is different like donut and coffee cart sort of things that were laced with different stuff, so people knew to go to them to be able to get their fix or whatever. Uh, Then he later played a cop, and that was also funny.
Have
But yeah,
you,
it had been a lot of
um,
fun to watch.
Phantom? Have you played on RP servers with RPers?
Yeah.
That was a yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Uh-huh.
Sure.
And how did they do their events?
I mean, hell, you're talking about 10 years ago. I mean, typically it's groups of people. I mean, there's not much you can do event wise in WoW. I mean, there were back then. It was mostly, sitting in a tavern, storytelling, just role playing
Oh,
characters. What
sitting
events
in
can you
taverns. That
trigger?
sounds like
What events can you trigger in WoW as an RP?
they create their own.
Like what?
So they have a DM, and the
Uh-huh.
DM comes up with a story, and people uh, respond to the story. So the DM will say, "Hey, there's an apple over there on the ground," and people will say, "Oh, okay. Well, I go over to the apple, I pick it up, and blah 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 happens." And they aren't triggering any events. The events
Yeah,
happen
Rory, that's
because
right.
they're working together to
Yeah,
tell the story.
weddings. Yeah, those are the sorts of things.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah,
Yeah.
but the weddings only happened in the taverns.
That was an example. Probably,
They could
probably,
come up with
probably the best weddings happen in taverns.
yeah, maybe. No, the RPers on RP servers come up with whole storylines that are happening, and they don't necessarily trigger anything, but they make extra stories that are happening around the environment that's there. And sometimes they just come up with their own invisible props that they add, and you interact with them as if the props are really there.
Actually, as people are typing this, yeah, I remember the it was in WoW, wasn't it? There was a player who actually passed in real life, and they had a funeral for him, and
Mm.
I think it was on a PvP server, and everyone was lined up, paying their respects, and a group came in and just decimated everyone.
Mhm.
Oh, I
It
mean that
pissed
was
off.
one of the problems with Ultima Online is you better be super tidy with your your in-game wedding reservations, because almost every time I keep hearing the story after story, it was nice and pretty and everything. All of a sudden, people were killing everybody and then doing the kneeling motion over the dead bride.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and it's like, yeah, that's Ultima Online for you. And so
Yes.
that's, in the most open RPist of open RP games, that's what happened. And so, I can see why you wouldn't want to necessarily have mandatory PvP for something like that.
So, what sort of thing? Again, I'm trying to understand where you're coming from, Dick. So what would be an event where a metropolis, where the community decides we're gonna we're gonna turn on, we're gonna take a poll. If everyone agrees, we're gonna turn on a siege next Wednesday. Like, what is it? How does that work?
Depends on what the story is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it worked the way that it worked in Alpha 1, where there's this gentlemanly agreement and you make a sign up board that you're going to be an attacker or a defender, and then, in your respective locations, I would imagine in this case, and then,
Right.
the
So,
siege occurs. That's what I imagine the actual, like, normal live RP or non RP regular, the one type of servers are going to do,
Mm-hmm.
that you
so,
actually sign up for these events.
So
You
you
don't
got
just
ten
show up
thousand
to.
people.
so,
Ten
so
thousand
wait, so wait,
people.
so wait. So the scenario would be something like that server has no Tulnar Metropolis, and the community decides they want to know what the game would be like with the Tulnar Metropolis, because they've been stuck with just these four for a year, and now they want to change. They want a Tulnar Metropolis instead of whatever the other four were. So they, or five, I guess. So they do a siege. They agree to do a siege, and they decide which of those metropolises they want to become a Tulnar
But why even siege?
metropolis.
Just hand it over.
How do you do that? That can
Just let
only
them walk
happen
in.
once. No, you have that has to happen after
You just
while
don't
it's
put up a
in
defense.
progression.
I mean,
Like if the community
mechanically,
decided,
a siege would be declared, but then, yes, as you're saying,
yeah,
just
Well,
don't.
like why bother? I mean,
because
you'll
you would
save
have
your
to turn the PV,
yeah,
you would
the
have to turn PvP on. PvP would still have to be the catalyst for change. So you'd have to destroy it. How are you going to destroy the node?
Oh yeah, you're still going to
yeah, you
destroy it. It's just, instead of sitting there and defending it, you just have everybody ship all the
yeah.
materials and everything out, and then, all right,
I mean,
it's time to siege it, and you're just going to
I
knock the
wouldn't want
place
all the
over, and
I
we're.
wouldn't want all the
Uh,
repair bills and everything else. All that. I'll just let
what
if the
repair
community
bill?
from dying from PvP. If the community decided they wanted the node to change, then just let them change it.
I don't understand what that means.
And
How would it change?
What happens
Wait, wait,
when
wait, wait, wait. No, 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 no. You have to explain what you
I
mean
own
by
the
let them change
node?
it.
I own the node. I am the mayor. You and a group of people said we want this to be different, and we all say okay.
We want to
So
wait,
I
wait.
just let
It's
you
specific,
say
wait,
you
wait,
declare
wait.
siege,
It's
and I let you
specific.
take it.
Yeah. So okay. So that could happen. Okay. You still have to turn PvP on for it to happen. It still has to actually be sieged and destroyed.
That sounds incredibly boring.
And it could be boring to you and not to other people who actually want to role play through that scenario.
So then what happens? I'm just trying to understand. So then what happens when uh, people come to the server who aren't necessarily, and they decided, well, we don't really want to role play. Uh, we just want to fight, and they have a majority of people over our peers all of a sudden on that server. And what happens then? Like they do a community vote and they have the majority, and so they go ahead and turn it into PvP anyways. Like, how does this all work? I'm trying to understand how
What do you
this
mean
even
turn
works.
it in? I don't even know what you mean by
Well,
turn it into
what you
PvP.
said was
Anything.
that a story is told, a decision is made,
Mhm,
the community
mhm,
votes. Community says
mhm,
we want this node to change. We vote. We turn on
mhm,
PvP. So what
mhm.
happens if a nefarious group of people come into your server and they build up their numbers and they just prompt a vote? They want to siege the node, but no one else wants to. Our peers don't want to.
It would still be majority, and I don't know what you mean by
Yeah,
our
and my
peers don't.
my point is, how do you prevent that from happening in a PvE RP server? Like, how do you stop
I don't know
what
that
you're
you need to.
okay? Yeah, report the GMs they are PvPing too much. Yeah,
Maybe.
I'm just trying to understand how it would work um, with what we have, because that is exactly why I don't think it works outside of the system that's been proposed.
Why?
Actually, it's WrestleMania tonight, so think WWE. I'm missing some match. I don't know what they have right now, but I'll be going back to it when we're done here.
Yeah, why wouldn't it work?
Well, no, I'm saying there are so many systems, because you're still saying there needs to be a PvP scenario available to you that the community votes on. So then what
Yeah,
happens? So what is the handbrake system to prevent people from gaming that system?
probably GMs if it's happening too often, more often than originally allowed. Just like you have GMs managing the RP on RP servers, right?
All right.
But it's would have to be tested. It's all theory, you know. It's just that it would not be it would not be a strictly PVE only, because you do need PvP to um,
Why do
catalyze the change.
PvPers have to be nefarious? That's not really what I'm trying to say, uh, Jamie. That's not.
He's talking about himself. He's talking about people who want to play like him and come in and just, fuck everything over. If we're talking Chronicles of Illyria.
Oh, so you're calling me out there. All right. Yeah, that was me. I'll own up to that. I will own up to that. That
Yeah, no,
100%.
you do. That's why I'm saying it, because you do. I'm not calling you out.
Um,
You readily volunteer that was your plan, so it's okay.
I am also the one that was consistently asking, well, if I don't want to worship this god, can I interfere and tear down the church? Uh, no, you cannot do that. Was the answer. Um, so there was another interesting. Uh, uh, my brain has taken this another interesting direction. I know we're getting close to out of time, um, because there are always comments about. They're saying us, they. I think it's more so you, Diggs, not liking this game. And there was a video today of Nart kind of talking about feedback. And I'm curious what your thoughts are about feedback. Is it relevant to give feedback as someone who isn't interested in playing a game? Because that seems to be what everyone tries to say. Well, if you don't want to, this is kind of where Nart took some hits too on one of his videos about losing faith. Like, well, if you aren't going to play, why are you giving feedback? I'm curious what your all's thought on that sort of a take would be.
Why does playing make a difference? Like, if I'm saying, hey, I love the look of these active skills, Does it matter whether or not I'm going to play? If I'm not going to play a fighter, is it okay for me to give feedback on whether I think the fighter kit looks good? Can we only give feedback on the primary archetype that we're going to play?
No, we can give feedback on anything. I think it's more of a question from that perspective of
But the logic is you can only
if you don't
give
100%.
feedback on what you're going to
Let me
play.
finish talking there. If the logic there is trying to say that if you don't intend to play the game, why are you on a show doing stuff, talking about the game in full depth and understanding the systems as if you were going to play the game. Now, you are going to play the game. We already know that. It's just not going to be in the way that like the average player is going to be playing the game. So,
Oh, I
you
don't
know,
know how often I will be playing the game.
who
I'll
knows?
probably mostly be playing other games. But no, it's the same logic. By that logic, we can only give feedback on the primary archetype we're going to play. We can only give feedback on the race that we're going to play.
Not
And
really.
that's just not valid, right? You can give feedback on stuff that you like even if you're not going to play it.
I mean, you're going to be interfacing with the other classes and archetypes and races, so it's not like you can't give feedback on them. Like, as a fighter
You
main,
can
I
give
think
feedback
these
on
mage
anything.
skills are okay, blah blah blah. But you're right. Anybody can give feedback on anything. We just happen to
Okay.
have a talk show that we do it on.
Yeah. And just because I don't want to play doesn't mean that I don't understand how systems work, or that I don't understand how other people who used to be interested in it might be reacting and have less interest because of things. And more importantly, I can still hope that the game succeeds because I have friends who are planning to play it and I have friends who are working on the game. Um, you know, just because I don't want to play it doesn't mean I have to not be interested in other people playing it. I'm not asking them to change anything. Now, if I was saying I don't like it and therefore they should change it and it should be this, this, and this, and this, and this, but I'm not going to play it, that would be a problem. But
Yeah, that
um,
would be a little bit weird, I guess.
um, but I can be happy that people like coffee, even if I'm not going to drink the coffee.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. Rock Sec mentions, I'm sure community will probably choose servers to be RP and RP friendly. I'm sure they will. I guess I just don't know what the safeguards are. Like, what safeguards do you have? Because if that's the case, there's going to be people just joining to just fuck around.
Yeah.
We're going to go and mess with them all as best as we can. So, like, I'm trying to figure out how that would
And see,
work.
I think that actually is one of the times that Steven did say that there's only one server type. I have to see what, and I think that was with Jeffrey. Um, so they asked that question and they said, yeah, they think there will be servers where there'll be designated PvE servers where um, the players kind of say, yes, this is the server we're hoping will be mostly RP, so mostly RP people will choose that server, and people who want it to be mostly PvE will choose that server. But you can expect once people who want to fuck things over come in to fuck things over, they'll say, "Oh, they think this is going to be a RP server. We're going to come in and disrupt them. That'll be fun. We'll make them mad." It's awesome.
No, not even to make them mad. Just as I was saying in chat, a full, hardcore RP or non-RP alliance might be like, hey, we're gonna max all of our numbers in our alliance. We're gonna world first everything. We're gonna be the big brutal fighting force. You don't get in our way. And if you guys want to RP around, it's like, oh, if you see the blah blah alliance, you better turn the other way. That's great because we're probably not talking to you guys as much as we're talking to each other as we go mowing across the land and building our metropolis. Metropolis of war.
I guess I didn't really hear this from you, Nero. I heard you hear, we should test things, but I feel like that's your constant vibe. Do you see this working? Like, could nodes exist in a non PvP environment?
It wouldn't be a non-PvP environment.
Well, you know what I
There would
mean.
still- it all if you got rid of mandatory flagging, except in raids, like caravan flags, sieges, that sort of stuff. That would probably take care of a lot of it for RPers, or not RPers, well, maybe RPers, but PvE players that that they would potentially just prefer to not be bothered, or perhaps even further, not even be attackable when you're flagged as a non-PvP sort of player. But again, it's only in those limited places. You're out gathering wood, somebody can't go over and, kick you over and take your stuff. If you two decide, all right, here and now, we're going to flag and we're going to fight, and then maybe after 5 minutes of not being in combat with other players, you're allowed to unflag. That doesn't seem too terrible. That's a consensual sort of thing. And of course, if you're participating in a siege, participating in a caravan, participating in, those levels of events, you understand that, yes, it is going to be a combat event. I better get ready for it. They're going to kill me. I'm going to kill them. If they even attack, they might all just join. So it's something that I think is achievable, because it's just a way of manipulating how the flagging system works and a little bit of the core mechanics around them. I don't think it's something that would be too difficult for them to do and pull off. And that would actually do a lot to help support some element of the RP. However, I think the RP servers would be more of a lower level RP. Like the tavern events are a good example of things RP servers would be able to do a lot more of. Or maybe grouping up to, hunt a specific creature as like this, story, player-driven story sort of thing that they've made up for themselves. Sure, that makes sense. But ultimately, there will be things that I believe there will just be players wanting to move and shape and advance their nodes, their locations that they're invested in, or otherwise part of their RP is, this will only ever be a humble town. We don't want to advance it from here. We're going to be very slow with the way that we build up and progress this place, so that way the rest of the area can kind of build up around us, and we'll stay put like this and be the humble town, because that's the role that we want for this node in this location. And so, I think it's going to be not necessarily there's a GM on like the global server scale that's able to help dictate and activate these events and such, but all of the different stories of each individual region and their nodes and what's going on in the interplay between them will already naturally create the drama and the friction and the drive to advance, to be ready to have the place kicked over because there's a new residents that want to rebuild the place in their style, whatever it might be. This Kalar abomination on our homeland. Well, we've got to build this place up just enough so it can be ambitious that someone would burn it all the way down to the ground, so that way we can rebuild it in, you know, in the likeness of our ancestral homelands. Um, that's the sort of RP I could see. It wouldn't be a we need controls over the buttons and the levers of the mechanics as much as we have this thing change with the flagging system, so it isn't open PvP. You have to consent to like a duel to actually having, you know, been offended by somebody and using the you know, slap with glove emote to call about a duel. You know, other than that, you're not actually going to be fighting people out in the open if it isn't part of some sort of event. And people are just going to be, as part of the investment in the place that they're living, um, that's going to be how they drive and shape the narrative. And there may be different people with different things they want to do with the place. And so that's where there will be not only the narrative friction, but also, you know, the in-node political friction. So, you know, just give enough of the systems for just a normal PvP like server, and I think our peers would be able to do the thing. Now, like I was saying, you know, earlier, if a giant alliance comes through and they're like the big tough guys, you know, roll with it, RP with it. They, you know, you can even call them the bad guys if you want.
Yeah, I mean, in my view, it's the meaningful conflict is still there. It's just taking away the risk versus reward. There's no risk because you know that the PvP is occurring. You know when and where, and it's story directed and community directed. So you still have, even on a PvE server, that you would still have PvP catalyzing change.
Well, I'm gonna have to get up here in a minute because my back is just like cramping real bad. So,
Tell me you're old without telling me you're old.
I
Oh,
typed this in chat a while back when we started. Yeah, I don't know. It's when I'm sitting, man. Something's going on with my lower back. I'm standing. I'm fine. I don't
You're
know if
not
I'm.
30 anymore.
I don't know if I'm able to get up out of this damn chair. You know, I guess the way I'll close this up. So for me, anyways, and then if you two want to as well, you know, when I think of nodes and ashes, I think of Eve, right? So and we talked at this probably 2017 videos that I've chatted about this was, you know, I used to always read these articles in PC Gamer or PC magazines about, you know, Eve and the stories and the players fighting each other and turning on each other and the spies and the just really fun stories that come out of this that change the world. That you know changed entire organizations and trade and you know one or two people and that is how I visioned nodes. So I guess it's almost I like people. I like to get to know people. I'm interested in people. What drives people? That's why I do what I do. Um, for those of you who don't know what I do, I'll tell you offline. I don't want to freak anyone out. And so I really see nodes as a way to see those player stories. And and to me, the difference in my mind, and this could be wrong, I don't know. I'm not looking for an RP story as in like a novel, somebody that has created a story that they're telling. That's not what I come to Ashes for. What I'm coming here for is the individual players themselves, the people. Yes, they have characters, but the people that are driving the characters' actions. That's what I'm interested in, and that's where when I think of nodes without PvP, it just falls apart in my head. So that's my tie around to this. So
Yeah, if you're thinking about the players and not the characters, it's not an RPG because RPG is about the characters, not the players. And, you know, often when you're playing RPGs, you are making a difference between character knowledge and player knowledge and player personality and character personality. It's supposed to really be about the character and the character's skills. It's supposed to be what's key. Um, but also, yeah. So if I thought it was Eve, and this is why my first question to Steven when he was on is compare it to Eve. Because if Ash's PvP is supposed to be like Eve, I'm not playing it. And it's the moment it became like Eve and Arcades, with the introduction of the open seas, that is the exact moment where I was like, yeah, Now that that's confirmed, I don't need to test corruption. I'm not really interested in this game, and I think it's great for the people who love PvP and love Eve and love Arcade and love Lineage 2. That's awesome for them. It's just not a rule set that I enjoy. So I don't all that stuff you were saying about Eve, I don't enjoy any of that. That's not fun to me. And I do come to MMORPGs because I want to recreate the storytelling of novels.
Diggs, any or Neuro, any final words?
Nah, I guess it was fun to watch you guys
Fun
argue.
argue.
That was debate.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like, I keep thinking, is it more like on the quarrel side of things, or is it more on the, philosophized side of things? But they RP debated. Yes, indeed, Grumpy Guy, you're correct. No, other than that, so fun subject to explore and talk about a little bit, and we'll see if the one server to host them all will be how it runs at launch, post launch, how it's all going to work out and shake out, what rules are going to change from the current system to what it's going to look like at launch. There's going to be a lot of testing and feedback and input going on. So that's that'll be interesting. That's all from me.
All right. Well, with that being said, I don't know if I can actually. Do I have to pop back to? Can I send a raid, or do I have to be logged into our?
You probably have to be.
Yeah. So, I'm gonna try to get us over to the Golden Feather if I can. Let me try to get this on here.
Yeah. If you stay around for the raid, cool. Otherwise, see you later. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday night or Monday morning, depending where you're at in the world.
All right. Yep.
I
It's
think
not
it's
letting
already
me.
like Monday afternoon, like in Australia or something. Can't remember.
Oh yes, and we have the eclipse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we got an eclipse.
And then the Rapture, so it's not going to matter anyway. All this is gonna be over.
Oh, it's not going to
Rapture.
be a full one, just like a magnitude 2 or something. Just enough to lift people out of their shorts. All right.
Sorry.
I think it's gonna just be us kind of chilling and like hanging out here for a second while it's yes, a low effort rapture. Yes.
Sorry, my mic got all jacked up there. All right, we are sitting in the raid now, and thank you all. It's been fun.
Mm-hmm.
Cheers, everybody.